that's why every coach need a coach to help them do that work and make sure you go through all the mental blocks that you need to get rid of. Because even though we know how to help our client do it, we might need some support doing it. So I think that's very important. And I worked with a lot of different coaches who really helped me on that particular topic. And then I feel like it's a little bit of trial and error. You're going to try one price, it's going to resonate. You're going to try another price, it's not going to resonate. And also at the beginning, when you're trying to build momentum, you're willing to cut prices because you want to have more experience and you want to work with more people. And as you get more busy, then you can increase your prices because you don't have that much room to onboard new clients. So again, I think that the key here is one, being patient, two, trying different things. And what's the worst case that can happen? They tell you it's too much. And then you can say, hey, well, how much would you be willing to pay? And can we talk about it? And usually if the fit is right and the person will work with you, they will make it happen.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Chloe Vichot, a certified professional coach specializing in executive whole life coaching, helping founders and executives scale their businesses while staying aligned with who they are. She supports mission-driven leaders in strengthening both their leadership and their personal lives in ways that are purposeful and sustainable. With over 20 years of experience spanning global finance roles at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Societe Generale, and BNP Paribas, along with her own entrepreneurial ventures, she blends corporate rigor with founder insight. Her work focuses on creating space for reflection, bold action, and leadership that feels both successful and deeply authentic. Welcome to the show, Chloe.
Thank you so much, Pedro. I'm excited to be here today with you.
Yeah, me too. And it's great to have you, and I always like to backtrack a little bit, rewind it, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you?
So that was around 3.5, 4 years ago. As you mentioned, in the intro. So I'm a French person living in New York. I've been in New York for 20 years. 10 of those years I was in finance. Then I was an entrepreneur. And then at some point when I was looking at my next move, coaching became very obvious. Interviewed for a position and they were positioning me as a coach. And then I met someone else who was an actual coach. And I just thought, this is my next move and this is what I want to be doing.
Okay. And just so I can understand, when did it shift, from I'm helping people? Because that's a path we see a lot of coaches going through, right? They're like, I want to impact more people, want to help lives. So I'm building a real business around this, because I understood that there was somewhat level of a calling here, because people were like, hey, Chloe, I think you should be doing this, right? So I want to understand when that shift happened from helping to, hey, I'm running a real business about coaching,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, when you become an entrepreneur, a lot of people come to you with advice, especially, I would say, switching from finance to food. A lot of people want to do that. So I would mentor a lot of people who would reach out and ask me, how did you do? How did you quit your job? So I just naturally started doing that. And especially for women, I would spend a lot of time helping them. I mean, I would do it with men as well, but it just became natural where I was talking to so many people. And then again, when I was looking for the following move and a few people mentioned that, it just all clicked. And I was like, well, that's kind of what I've been doing for fun for the past 10 years. Why not do it as a full-time job?
Okay. And after you got rolling, who are the people that kept showing up? And you kind of browsed through it. You said men, women. So I want to understand the ones you realize if you got to that point, right? Okay, these are my people. This is my tribe.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think my tribe is really the entrepreneur. I feel very close to women because there are extra layers that come into it, especially if you want to have a family. So those are topics we will talk about. but I would say entrepreneur in general and helping them go through the journey and find a good balance, work-life balance. That's why, when you introduced me, you said I'm a whole life coach because I see a person as a whole. And often people hire me, even on executive level, when I work with people in finance, they hire me to help them to manage their board, or they hire me to help them on their leadership with their team. But very often we talk a lot about what happens at home and what happens personally, because again, like if something is bothering you, you're not able to show up as a whole and you're not being your best self. And that's really where I try to create a safe space for them to feel comfortable opening up about everything. And once we have those discussions, then we can move on about the more tactical and the more business side.
Okay. So just so we can ground this for the audience, we're talking about you have a background in corporate, right? A solid background in corporate. But at the same time, you're talking about whole life coaching, right? So let me understand here this, and we can clarify to everyone listening is whenever you have someone at the door, right? A client, potential client, do they grasp the idea of whole life coaching, or is it more something that that down the line shows up? Or even in the discovery call or whatever you want to call it, just trying to understand if they go to you to understanding the concept of whole life coaching, or is she going to help me in my career? You know that difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, coaching is like therapy or is like finding a right partner. You have to find someone with whom you click. And so I feel that usually people come to me as word of mouth. Someone mentioned, oh, you should work with Chloe. She really helped me on this particular topic. And so as I do my first call, you're right. I do mention, when I'm going to ask you how you are doing, I really mean, how are you doing? I want you to tell me if you're not doing well. I want you to tell me if your mother-in-law was bothering you, or your child wasn't sleeping, or something is happening at home, because this is impacting your business and this is impacting how you show up. So that's kind of where I start introducing the whole life coaching. And again, as we work together and as they feel safe in the space that, we create together, and I ask questions, sometime I'm going to go into personal stuff. And again, like I will say, again, do you want to talk about this? Or I have a feeling that this is something we should be talking about right now. How do you feel? Is this true or is this not the case? And again, people will respond or not, depending on how they feel. But I try to explain from the beginning that I am going to come with a very empathic, but also very curious, but also very direct way. And if I feel that something is off, I'm just going to step in and ask about it, because I feel like this is something that needs to be addressed.
I love the fact that you've leveled the playing field, right? It's like you let the door open. This is how I do things. We may or may not use that or get to that level, to that point, but the door is open and I want to know in case this will impact whatever we're trying to achieve, right? So that makes perfect sense. Okay. Now, that's the coaching side. And I want to talk about the part nobody escapes, which is marketing. And you kind of browse through it, right? You mentioned word of mouth, potentially some referrals. So, Chloe, how do people usually find you?
It's a great question. I think it's a combination of word of mouth and referral, but also it's a matter of, to your point of marketing, of being present. I try to write a blog on on a weekly basis where people, hear about my thoughts, hear about, what's happening, what are the discussions that I keep on having that I think are worth mentioning to my readers. And I feel like through time, as people read me and they're like, oh, I saw you at this webinar. Oh, I read this article. This kind of resonate. I would love to know more. Could we talk about that? And then we have a discovery call and we go a little bit deeper. But so I think it's a matter of people being aware of who I am, what I write about, what I'm passionate about, and then finding a way through me and having a discussion.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's talk about business for a second. Okay, so people find you, they read through your blog, they were sent through a referral, people that worked with you in the past and loved it. So they resonate with your work. Okay, and eventually they want to know what working with you actually looks like, Chloe. Because everyone builds their coaching business a bit differently,
Mhm.
So when someone actually becomes a client, right? So what does that experience look like right now?
So it depends of, why they're coming from and what they're looking for. But I feel like, again, if we really focus on entrepreneur, I've created a shorter program, a 4 to 6 session program to really get to know each other. And there I do a mix of coaching and advisory because I'm an entrepreneur too. I know what it is to create a business. I've been there. My coaching business is my third business actually. And so I try to ask as many questions and really let the client lean towards the direction they need to come. But I also try to ask a lot of strategic questions to make sure that the way the business was being built is the right way. If you take a step back, usually I make the analogy of when you create your business, you have to take a lot of assumption. You have to pivot depending on the needs. And so you build a tower based on what you have at that particular time. You find a client, this was good, you go into that direction, but the tower is not necessarily straight, right? It could be a little bit wobbly. So what I do with them is I take all the pieces, we put them on the table, and then we build a new foundation that is very stable so that they can grow. So I'm going to challenge, who the clients are. I'm going to challenge how much they charge for their services. What's part of the initial service? And as we discuss, sometimes they realize, oh, well, for my intro service, I charge, I don't know, $150, but this is 8 hours of work. That doesn't make any sense. And then they pivot and they change. Or they're going to realize that they've been servicing a certain type of client, but that's not necessarily what they are passionate about. And they're going to pivot. So again, I feel like as any coach, my role is I don't have the answer. The client has the answer. They know they're the only one who know where their business is going to go. I will empower them to find that direction and I'm going to hold their hand to help them do it. And I will also challenge as much as I can to make sure that they feel comfortable with where they're going.
Okay. Now, I think that's very interesting. The fact that it's to an extent, we're talking about a hybrid model. It's like you have that corporate mindset, right? That you're going to talk about strategy, you're going to talk about system, but at the same time, there's a human touch to it, which is a coaching side that develops further down the road, obviously, because that's a relationship that's been developed, right? At the end of the day, I mean, your work seems pretty hands-on. We're talking about discovery calls. We're talking about the coaching itself, right? So, how do you think about capacity so you don't stretch yourself too thin?
Well, I mean, first of all, I feel like the discovery call works both ways. I want to make sure that I have clients that I feel excited working with, that I feel I can add value in the issues and what they're looking to grow and what they're looking to do. So I really feel that they need to see if they have a good feeling with me and vice versa. And then on a monthly basis, I usually can add 3 to 4 clients on those short-term programs. And then again, like the whole idea of the short-term program is to get to know each other, to do some work. And then after that, see, okay, do you feel that you're ready to work on your own and fly with your own wings? Or are we looking for a longer term partnership, 6 months, a year? And then again, depending on how many slots I had at this particular time, that's when I will add more people to the roster of the people that I work with.
Okay. I want to tap into your experience a little bit here since this is your third business, right? Because this is a different industry. I'm not sure about the other two, but this is a service-based industry. And one thing every coach wrestles with at some point is pricing. And we're not talking about hard numbers here, okay? And how to package their work, So how do you think about it today? Because this is like something that I see a lot of other coaches struggling, which is a self-worth path. Am I charging enough? Am I not charging enough? And were there any lessons along the way that shaped how you landed where you are right now?
I think that's a great question. I will say, that's why every coach needs a coach to help them do that work and make sure you go through all the mental blocks that you need to get rid of. Because even though we know how to help our client do it, we might need some support doing it. So I think that's very important. And I worked with a lot of different coaches who really helped me on that particular topic. And then I feel like it's a little bit of trial and error. You're going to try one price, it's going to resonate. You're going to try another price, it's not going to resonate. And also at the beginning, when you're trying to build momentum, you're willing to cut prices because you want to have more experience and you want to work with more people. And as you get more busy, then you can increase your prices because you don't have that much room to onboard new clients. So again, I think that the key here is one, being patient, two, trying different things. And what's the worst case that can happen? They tell you it's too much. And then you can say, hey, well, how much would be would you be willing to pay? And can we talk about it? And usually if the fit is right and the person will work with you, they will make it happen. They will ask their parents, they will ask their business partners, they will find the money in the business, but they will find the money. And again, it has to make sense. Can this coach help me scale? I'm right now making, I don't know, 300,000, 400,000. Could I make $1 million? Or I'm making $1 million. Could I reach $10 million? And how much is that worth on a monthly basis or on an annual basis? Is this worth 10,000, 15,000? You'll figure it out.
Well, I would highlight two things you mentioned I really like. I would say first one, it's like the outcome, right? What exactly are they getting out of it? Because that's something that will give you a ballpark for pricing. I think you nailed it. And the other thing is like, if you're at the early days, you should be willing to put in the reps, right? Repetition, because just by getting exposure by clients, or potential clients, you will learn so much about your ICP, who you're aligned with. So that makes perfect sense. I really like that angle. And that's a solid look at how you approach price and structure. I'm curious about where you're taking all this, right, Chloe? Looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm finishing a team coaching training. So I'm looking forward, again, within startup and within corporation, coming in, looking at a whole team, helping them fix their objective or go through a particular pain point that's happening within their team and helping them. And I also, want to do retreats with my clients. So offsites, I do some group session, but it's more like a half day work that I do. So I'm looking forward to all those avenues. In terms of avenues, I feel definitely down the road as I scale and I feel more comfortable with with really who my ICP is and how can I get this service to as many people as possible. Then training other people and finding ways to make it as a much bigger scales for sure.
Okay, that's interesting. For those who are wondering, the ideal client profile is what states the ICP, our listeners. And there's one thing that I like to mention is the retreats, right? I feel like they're so powerful, especially when we're talking about AI, we're talking about digital presence. But sometimes those connections, they seem to last longer, if that makes any sense. And of course, whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, Chloe, there's always something we're refining in the present, right? So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business right now?
That's a good question. Again, like I'm going through this team coaching training. So really understanding the dynamic within a team and how to make sure that it's not just one-to-one, but you're dealing with multiple people and you find the right balance in doing that. I think another one is really being aware of my bias and making sure that this helps me to challenge my clients in thinking about things that they might not have thought about because they might not have the same bias than me. But again, keeping them in check so that I don't influence in a certain way that is not positive for them.
Okay. Now, I want to tap into your experience for a second, okay? Because people listening can really benefit from this, especially since this is your third business. So you've been in the game long enough to hear all kinds of business advice, right? Some that sticks, some that really doesn't. So what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think is overrated or misunderstood?
Overrated. I think the first one, I don't think it's overrated, but everything takes a lot of time. We know it. Again, this is my third business. I know it. I know it's going to take time, but you're always like, I always see the glass half full. So I'm always like, oh no, it's going to be fine. It's going to happen faster than, I want it to happen. And then you realize it's just slow, but that's the way the game is being played and we don't have a choice. So just accepting and being patient. Again, know where you're going, know what your different milestones are, but don't feel discouraged if it's not going fast enough because that's how it's going to happen, especially if you build your own business. As we mentioned before, you have to do everything. You're the marketing expert, you're the coach, you're the one that finds the client, you're the one that makes sure like you're the accountant. You do everything at once, so it could be overwhelming. Again, I had two other businesses. I created that business and I'm like, oh, I have this skill set. clients are just going to come and it's going to be easy. And it's not that easy. And again, I have to be the head of marketing. I have to write. I have to do all those things, which I find exciting, but it just takes time and that's okay. So I feel like even though we hear it all the time, we might not really take it as we should. So just being aware that we have to be patient and that's okay.
So you're telling me, Chloe, that those people in the social media saying you're going to get rich overnight, that they're not telling the truth?
I don't think so.
Okay. And on the flip side, right? What's a piece of advice you wish more people actually took seriously,
So my advice that I give all the time is get started today. What can you do today to get started? If you want to be a coach, who can you start coaching? Even if it's for free, get the experience, get some feedback. If you're building a product, how could you put it in as many hands as possible to get feedback? Too often, we want our product to be perfect. We want the branding to be perfect. We want to have a company name, a website, a logo, social media presence and all of this. But this is all great. But what are you selling and who are you selling it to and how can you get started? Do you know someone who could try this product? And once they try it, could you find 5 other people who would now pay for that service? And how much would they be willing to? And again, going back to your earlier question, once people are starting to pay, you have an idea. Okay, well, this is a good price. Can I double next time? And then can I double again? Or can I find more people? And as you do that, not only you build confidence, you start making money and you're getting referral. The word of mouth is going to start to spread and you're getting your early adopters. Those are all your people that are going to be in your corner supporting you as you grow. And I think that's very important.
I love the fact that you highlighted that's to an extent, being a perfectionist is not a good trait to have, right? At a certain level, it's just putting out the content out there and be intentional about what you do. It's not just, I need to have the perfect setup, the perfect camera, the perfect website. It is about maybe there are people listening out there, and they might end up reaching out. And sometimes I see that paralysis, right? That's in the way of other coaches. I'm not sure if you agree with that, if I was able to translate to it, but did that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And you will get better as you get the reps done. You might not have the perfect mic. You might not have the perfect lighting, but you do the first one, you look at it, you have your feedback and you're like, that was horrible. And then the second one get better. And if initially you were waiting 6 months to have everything perfect, how many interviews can you do in 6 months? How many clients can you talk to in 6 months? And you would be in such a better position than if you were waiting for that. So again, I feel it's very important to start as early as possible to get the feedback and improve as you go, because by doing the reps, that's how you're going to get your business to the best level.
Okay, that makes sense. And now I want to switch gears for a second and do something a bit more fun. Not that this was not fun, but if you're down for it, I've got a quick game for you. Okay, we'll look at this through the lens of business investments. Okay, things like coaching, training, marketing, team, masterminds, you name it. Okay, it's simple. I'll give you 4 prompts and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. If there's a story behind it, even better. Okay, so what's the first business investment you remember making?
Business investment, I invested in a friend's coffee shop. So my first business, I had a coffee shop and I invested in a friend's business. That was my first business investment.
Okay. And what's
other than mine?
Okay. Makes sense. And what's the most recent one you made?
The most recent business investment, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's investing on myself and going through my team coaching training. That was an investment and I strongly believe in it. And I feel like, especially as coach, for me personally, the way I grow is by learning. And so investing in new coaching, making sure that I have the best coach so I can be the best coach myself and learning this way.
Yeah, I wouldn't call you a broken record. I mean, if you're telling me that you want to get to from point A to B, which is the group training and all that you mentioned, the corporate side, it's only fair that you invest in something to get you there, right? I mean, that's pretty
Absolutely
aligned with what you said. So yeah, definitely. And what's the best financial business investment you have made and why?
What's the best financial business that I've made? Financial business investments. I mean, for now, it's my coaching training. I know I love coaching. This is exactly where I want to be. I have a pretty unusual background, but this is such a strong advantage. Again, having this corporate background, having this entrepreneurship background, most people were like, so what are you going to do now? How is this making sense? And again, like, I think coaching is just like so perfect, and I like it so much that, believing in myself, investing into that training, becoming a certified professional coach, this is really, that's what I want to do for the next 20 years. And that's what I feel excited about. So I know that the return on my investment is going to be amazing.
I love it. Exciting. And what's one investment you wish you could get your money back on?
Honestly, I feel that I learned so much in adversity, and I feel like everything, all the money that I invested that didn't work out, I learned so much more. Or all the time that I invested, my second business, it didn't work out. I end up being kicked out of the company that I co-founded overnight.
Oh.
That was the biggest learning that I could have made. Like, we had raised $2.6 million. We were on track for doing amazing things. And then all of a sudden I'm out, and I was like, wait, who I am now? What is happening? But to me, this is the best like business class I could have taken. And now every time people are like, so should I have a co-founder? And I'm like, well, let's talk about it. Let's go through the equivalent of a prenup. What kind of question you should be asking each other to make sure that you have the same vision, and all those things, because I learned it the hard way, really helped me. So those are investments that I don't regret.
Sorry that you have to go through what you just told me, the being kicked out of your own company. But in a way, you turned the hardship into an opportunity. I'm talking to a person that seems that's passionate about what they're doing. And you wouldn't be here talking with me if it weren't for that kicked out, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's something to think of. And I bet you do, right? Now, looking at those, how has your approach to investing in the business changed over the years? I mean, if it has.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like going back to your previous question, I think that I'm not the only one. When I opened my coffee shop, I worked with a lot of consultants, and I honestly, like, I think that consultants are amazing and can really help you. But I feel like sometimes, because you have an imposter syndrome, or you're not sure exactly of what you can bring to the table, you surround yourself with a lot of consultants and you spend a lot of money on things that often you have to discover the hard way that, what you paid for is not what you want, and you end up doing it your own way. And so those are, dollars that I wish that I spent differently, because, it could have been useful for other things. But again, so I feel like, going back to your question, the more you can try, the more you can get feedback, and the more you can work and do the work, the better you're going to be able to pivot and adapt and get your business where you want to be. So again, we're going back to the same advice, which is don't wait, just act, get some feedback, improve, and then you're going to build a business based on real feedback, compared to based on assumptions that you have in your head with own your bias that needs to be challenged.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially, when you mention and being so transparent about it, and also to understand, to set up a frame of what good looks like. You got to know what bad looks like. It's just part of the experience, or you're never going to know what to compare with. It's the benchmark is there for a reason. Of course, we don't want to make mistakes, obviously, but they happen, right? And that's supernatural. No, I like that. And if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Chloe, where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm at Chloe Vichot on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I have a Substack, ancoli/substack.com. I have my website, ancoli.co. I respond to, even on Instagram, I'm Ancoli NYC. I respond to every DM, every message. I always have. Again, like, not because I don't necessarily think, oh, this is going to be a potential client, but just again, like, what is your question? What are you going through? How can I support you? Before I had my coaching business, I wrote about, like, I started my blog to share about my miscarriages and my personal story, because that's something I needed to go through to process this hardship. And it really helped me. And then I connected with a lot of women, and I really helped them without, I wasn't even coaching at that. I mean, I guess that's what this was putting me towards the coaching, job, because I just like to help people. This is who I am. And again, like, I feel like so many times you're going to connect with someone, something magical is going to happen. And, you never know. Are you going to be best friends? Is it going to be a business partner? Is something going to happen? Maybe nothing is going to happen, but at least you were nice to this person. And if one day you have a question or you need something, you are expecting them to do the same. So that's how I do.
Love it. Okay. There were a few things you shared today that really stuck with me. Okay, Chloe. I think when you mention about, leveling the playing field, when I say this is like, hey, this is how I work. This is the way I do things right off the bat. So you can get everyone aligned and everyone on the same page. I think that's crucial for coaching. And we see a lot of coaches out there that don't really do that, and that ends up being a nightmare at down the road because they're not aligned. The client doesn't understand expectations. So I think that's very important. I appreciate you sharing that. Also about being the third business you're in, right? That puts you in a different lens, I think, from most of other coaches. I think that's the strength you have, especially when you mentioned the hardships, right? Like being kicked out, that type of thing and being vulnerable about that and owning that process also, not trying to shy away from it. It's like, hey, that happened to me. And I just kept moving forward because at the end of the day, coaching is about vulnerability, right? You're asking so much from your coaches. It's only fair you do the same. And you did it gracefully. I would say also, I'm going to steal this quote, is that the client has the answer, because in a way we see a lot of people talking about that, but I really like that quote. It's so simple and to the point. And the advice you gave, about accept and being patient. I think this is sometimes I feel like social media and everyone around us is on a different level of speed. And I'm like, hey, this doesn't actually happens in real world, right? It takes time to build relationships, to build a business. So, Chloe, I appreciate what you do. And I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. It was great having you on.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It was really amazing being here.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.